Hello there. Welcome to a Facebook Live summer series. Today we're talking about how to spot a fake reader, whether in your classroom or if you're a homeschool parent at home. My name is Jen Benkel. I'm from Out of This World Literacy. I have a reading degree and a postgraduate degree as a literacy collaborative coordinator. And I love coming on Facebook. This is the third year I've been doing the summer series trainings for teachers and homeschool parents. And tonight's topic is really exciting. Hi, Catherine. I see you on here. Thanks for waving at me. If you're just joining, feel free to say hello in the comment section. Now, this is the second week in the Facebook Live series. If you missed any of the lives from last week, you can always go to my Facebook page at Out of This World Literacy and go in the videos section, and you can watch all the replays. You can even dive back into last year's Facebook Lives or the first year where I was live on Facebook. There's a ton of information if you just want to start binge watching while you're hanging out by the pool this summer or whatever you're doing laundry, you want to have some earbuds in, feel free to listen in. Hello, Gail. I'm glad you're on here live. Hi, Kim. Welcome. Sometimes Facebook shows me the comments as a delay. So if you're commenting, it might just be a minute for me to see. Hi, Catherine. Hello, Jessica. She said it's her third summer watching. That's awesome. I feel like I should have like some sort of like pin or medal for you. I'm not sure, but that's so cool, Jessica. I'm glad you're back. So today we're talking about how to spot a fake reader. Now I'm going to talk to you about how you can, and what I mean by a fake reader is somebody who's reading a book independently, but they're not necessarily really reading. And this can happen when they're reading to themselves silently, maybe at a guided reading table, or if they're working independently during your center time, you have them reading independently. It can also happen when they're reading out loud. So I'm going to show you some signs of how students kind of make it like they're reading, but they're really kind of fake reading when they're reading out loud and when they're reading silently. And sometimes as teachers, we get so busy, we don't just take a minute to just watch our kids. If you just take 1 minute and just put all the stuff you have to do aside and just pay attention to what your kids are doing, you can start really noticing these signs. If they're really reading or if they're just kind of faking it. Hello, Jackie. Welcome. Hi, Priscilla. Glad you're back. Okay, so if they're reading out loud and they're doing these things, they may be, I'm not saying they necessarily are, but you may need to check, are they really reading for meaning? And by fake reading, I mean they're just kind of skimming it over it and they're not really understanding what's happening. Our number one goal is that they read for meaning. So if they struggle to read words automatically while they're reading out loud, that could be a sign that they are really struggling. So if they don't have this level of automaticity with words that they're reading, then that can be a sign that they're struggling. If they get hung up on one word for too long, where you can tell it's going to affect the meaning of that sentence or that section of text, say they're stuck on one word for a long time and they're just kind of sitting there. They're not really using any strategies to sound it out or go back and reread. They're just kind of stuck. You know, at that point, their brain, the front part of their brain is just kind of shutting down and they've probably lost the meaning of what happened inside of that sentence. They're really struggling there. Or if they keep reading on after they make an error that affects the meaning and they don't go back and fix it. So if they're reading out loud and they make an error that really affects the meaning and they go back and read it again to fix it, that's awesome. That's such a great sign. That tells you that they're actually understanding what they're reading because they told themselves automatically, hey, that didn't make sense. I need to fix that. But if they just keep going and they're not going back and fixing those errors that really affect the meaning of the story or the text they're reading, then that can be a sign that they're struggling and just kind of faking their way through it. Do they forget most of the important information in the text? So if they're reading and after the reading they forget some of the things that they just read, they're not able to just do basic retelling of what they read to you, that's a sign that they're struggling. If they read the text at the same speed, so speaking of fluency, because fluency is very much directly related to comprehension, which again is our number one goal, to read for meaning. So if they're reading the text just in a very monotone, kind of straight, flat rate all the way across the board while they're reading out loud, that is a sign that they're not reading for comprehension and they're kind of faking their way through it. Kids who would do that, they really don't understand how to change the tone and how to change the rate and speed and read the punctuation. They're just going through it either really slowly at the same rate or really fast or in a monotone kind of way like this. That's a sign that they're struggling there. If they repeat words or phrases frequently while they're reading out loud, so repetition is okay, but if they're repeating a phrase over and over again, then that's a sign that their brain is kind of stuck. It's kind of pausing and it's not able to move on to the next idea or the next piece of meaning that it really should be. So that's a sign that they're struggling if they're doing a lot of repetition or they're reading things over and over again. If they go back, if say they get to a word that they don't know and they go way too far back, sometimes we only just need to go back a few words or at the beginning of that sentence to figure out that new word. But if they go back to like the beginning of the page to reread the whole thing again, that's a sign that they really need some help on understanding how to reread and how to go back and self-correct too. So those are all things you can look for while they're reading out loud. Now let's talk about the tougher thing, which is when they're reading silently. Sometimes kids can be really fake reading while they're reading silently, and it's much harder for us as teachers, whether we're at home or at school, to figure that out because they're reading quietly. We don't hear what they're decoding. We don't hear the way they're reading and their rate, and we don't notice what they're thinking as much. So while they're reading independently, if you kind of have a kid in your class and you're thinking, I don't really know if they're getting that much out of this independent reading time, look at the student and pay attention to these things. Is the student looking around the room? So is the student the book is in front of them? I wish I had a book in front of me. The book is in front of them and they're just they're doing this a lot. They're just looking around the room, what's everyone else doing, or they're fidgeting a lot, they're moving around. Pay attention to those things. And those are the things that us as teachers, we don't notice because we're doing so many other things. But if you're wondering, just stop and pay attention to that. Also, their eyes. Take a look at their eyes. So if they're looking around, that's one thing. But are their eyes tracking the print in a way that makes sense? Or are their eyes kind of going up and down on the page? Pay attention to the way their eyes are moving on the page as they're reading. And along those lines, pay attention to how fast their eyes are moving. So are their eyes just flying through that page? That tells you probably that they're skimming the text and they're just faking it to make it, right? They're not really slowly reading the text in a way that is a perfect rate for comprehension, but they're just shoop, shoop, shoop. Pay attention to that as well. Also, if after, here's another one. If they take a significant more amount of time to read silently than you had expected them to, that's a sign that they're struggling as well. So if they're in your guided reading group and you expect them to read 10 pages in 10 minutes, and that 10 minutes is up and they're on page 5, that's a sign that that text is going to be a little too difficult for them or something that you maybe need to revisit and find out what's going on. Also along those lines, if they read that 10 pages in 1 minute, then they definitely did not read for meaning and they just skimmed through and just kind of said, I'm done. You got those kids too, the fast finishers. They're like, I'm finished, I'm done. And so make sure that either too slow or too fast is kind of like Goldilocks and the Three Bears. You got to get it just right. Pay attention to those things as they're reading silently. If they struggle after reading to retell or have a conversation about whatever it is that they're reading, that's another sign. So if they can't recall basic things that were in the text, like who's the main character, what was the problem, what happened first, how was the problem solved, I'm talking not high level stuff, I'm just talking basic things. If they can't do those things, that's a sign that they're not reading for meaning clearly and that there's something going on there. Also, if there's dialogue in the text that they're reading and they struggle to retell that dialogue and talk about what the characters said, that's a sign that they're struggling and they weren't really truly reading. If they can't go back and find evidence to support things that happened in the text, also another sign. This can be another one too. If after the reading, if they're able to give you basic recall stuff, but then the next day or the next time you get together, say if it's in a guided reading group, they don't remember what happened the next day or the day after that. It's just this short term, they remember it immediately after and then everything kind of goes away. That's another sign that there's some comprehension problems going on that they're lacking there. Kimberly said, how about a student who reads words fluently but cannot write the words correctly? Example, ta for at, run or RN for run. So yeah, that's a phonics coding kind of issue. I know my son has problems with that as well. So that's actually better than the opposite way, because that actually tells me that that student is able to read for meaning, that because they have such a strong comprehension foundation, while they're reading, they're able to read that word even though their eyes are looking at it as RN. They know, because it makes sense to say run there, they know that that fits there. So I would look at that student and see, is that student going back and rereading? When they make an error, are they going back and rereading for meaning? My guess is they probably are. And it looks like you'll need to do some phonics and word work with that student, but the comprehension appears to be really strong. So that's a good thing. But that's something I would look at. Okay, so as I've been going through this Facebook Live series, I've also been answering questions from teachers that have been asking me a bunch of questions. You can see all of my questions over here. Tonight I'm going to answer 2 questions, one from Heather and one from Tammy. The first one is from Heather Veach. I know this is backwards and you probably can't see it that well, but Heather says, next year I will be teaching 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade writing. What is your best advice when teaching different levels? And I really like this question because I know a lot of teachers teach different levels. So my advice for Heather when working with multiple grade levels for writing is, first of all, choose mentor texts, your read alouds or whatever mentor text that you use. Choose those that are going to be most appropriate for those multi-levels. So you might have students who are really into a certain topic. Choose texts that are going to get them motivated about that. So if you're in writing, for example, if you're writing a personal narrative, choose personal narratives that you know that they can all make connections to. And then during your writing workshop, or before, I should say, before your writing workshop, you'll have read that picture book to your class so you can reference that during your writing workshop. So if you're writing a personal narrative, kids in 3rd grade, 4th grade, and 5th grade all need to write a personal narrative. So that's one good thing for you. The next good thing is they all need help with certain skills, like finding moments of small moments full of emotion to write about. So you can practice that with those kids and do whole group instruction. My advice too would be do a lot of modeling. Write yourself. You must be a writer yourself in order to have your students become writers. If you really want to see them flourish as writers, you need to be writing your own personal narrative as well. I know that's hard for some people, but it's the truth. And so get in there and write alongside them. Be that model and that example for them. Then when they go off to write on their own independently, you can differentiate then, and you can work with them at their ability levels there. But they're all going to be writing personal narrative in this example, and they're all going to be writing about small moments that they have that are full of emotion. So you can do a whole group lesson on these skills and model it through your own writing. Then when you break them up and maybe you see a small group of 3rd graders in a guided writing group, and you see the 4th graders in a different guided writing group, and maybe you see the 3rd graders more often, or you do one-on-one conferencing, however you want to set that up. You can kind of play around with that. But those are just some ideas that I would have for you, Heather. Tammy St. John says, I'm moving to 3rd grade from 1st grade this past year. What's the best way to run reading groups? Guided reading groups, individual conferences, or both? Why? Best way to organize a 3rd grade reading block. This is a good question. So what I do is I would say do both. Guided reading and conferences. I think they're both very important. Guided reading, when I run my guided reading, I use 6 components, and I talk about this in my guided reading webinar, but just to run through them really quickly, I always have an introduction because I'm working with kids at their instructional level, so they need support. I have an introduction. The kids are reading silently in the 2nd step. The 3rd step is when we talk about the text, so we have open-ended conversations about what they read immediately after reading. I want to find out what they're thinking right after reading. I don't want to ask specific questions yet. Then the 4th step is we focus on a skill. That's when I ask my specific questions. I may do some word work, and the last step I do is an extension activity. So I might send them off with a graphic organizer to practice that skill on their own, whether it's with the book we just read or if they're reading something independently, I want them to try it out with too. So that's how I kind of set up my guided reading. That is a 10-second overview. If you want to learn about guided reading, you can do it in jenbengalwebinars.com. You can register for a guided reading webinar there. Those are free live webinars. Also, for conferences, reading conferences, I talk about that in my guided reading webinar as well. I love doing reading conferences. I think they're very valuable. When I would do them is maybe when I have my guided reading group and the kids are reading silently, I would leave the table to go meet with a student or two and do a quick 2-minute conference. I also liked to do them when my students were reading independently the first 15 minutes of the school day. I would do about 3 conferences during that time as well. So they don't have to be during the literacy block. Anytime your kids are reading independently books that they want to read, that they enjoy, which they should be doing in school, then I would do a reading conference with them. They're great because they hold the kids accountable, especially those kids who keep abandoning books or never finish reading a book. You can help hold them accountable, and you know what everybody in your classroom is reading. So I definitely recommend doing both of those. Catherine said, I was wondering something about tomorrow. There's supposed to be a Facebook Live at 8 o'clock, but there is also a live webinar. Catherine, can I hire you, please? Like, I double booked myself, clearly. Am I looking at this wrong? Will the Facebook Live be at a different time or the webinar at a different time? Please let me know. Thank you. I love that you brought that up because you know what? I noticed that last week and then I totally forgot about it. So what I'll do for Facebook Live, thanks to Catherine for giving me this reminder. Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to go live probably at about 6 o'clock tomorrow. So I'll go live before the live webinar, if that makes sense. So I'll be live tomorrow night on Facebook. What am I talking about tomorrow night? I'm talking about, oh, that's a good one. Okay, so tomorrow night I'm talking about 4 steps to getting everyone writing. So does anyone have struggling writers in their class ever? Yeah, me too. Writing, I had no idea how to teach writing when I first became a teacher, and I obsessed about it until I figured it out, and then it became my favorite thing to teach. So I'm going to show you tomorrow how you can get everyone writing in your class in 4 steps. No joke. Even the kids who are just like, no, I'm not writing. I've been able to get everybody writing. I'm going to do it at 6 because like Catherine said, I do have a webinar tomorrow night and I'm really excited about it. It's about reading fluency. It's a brand new webinar. Let me see if I can type this in. You can go to jenbengalwebinars.com and you can register for it. It's free. It's going to be all about reading fluency. I'm going to go over the 6 characteristics of reading fluency. I'm going to debug the big myths that are out there about fluency that I can't wait to talk about. And I'm going to share also with you 11 different teaching styles that are really best practice for improving reading fluency. So come to that one. Marisol, are you going to come to that? I hope you are. It's going to be happening at 7:30 p.m. Central. And again, if you've never been in a live webinar, it's super easy. You do need to register and you will get an email with a link that's just for you. So when you want to join the webinar about 15 minutes before, you just click that link and it takes you to the webinar page that we'll be on. I always recommend coming on with a laptop because when you're watching webinars on your phone, it's a little bit tricky. You can do it. If you only have a phone, you can totally do it, but it's a lot easier if you have a laptop. Let's see, Catherine said, also, I can't register for any of the July or August webinars. You should be able to now, Catherine. I know that last night I posted them. I was working until about midnight last night and the links weren't all in there, but I finished them today. So the only one that isn't available to register for right now, Catherine, for July and August is the very last one on the 27th. Because that's brand new. That one's going to be about literature circles. So I don't have the workbook up for it yet, so you won't be able to register for that one. But you can register for any of the July and August webinars now. So go to jenbengalwebinars.com. I wanted to get the whole summer out for y'all because I know so many people are like, I missed that webinar. Are you going to do it again? Are you going to do it again? This way you can see, okay, if I miss it this day, I've got one more chance in August to watch it. And you can see the whole summer what your opportunities are for live webinars. If you want lifetime access to the webinars, which means you can watch them anytime, the price for that is going up at 11 o'clock tonight. So what time is it? I don't do math. I have to use my fingers to do 2 hours. I know it's bad. So lifetimewebinars.com. That gives you lifetime access to all my webinars. It's a one-time deal. So when you buy in, then you're in. Anytime I add new webinars in the future, you get them for free. You get to watch them as many times as you want. You can pause them. You can replay them. You get all the notes. You get a bunch of bonuses and all this good stuff. You get access to an exclusive Facebook group that I was actually just live in before this, doing a Q&A with everybody, a live Q&A. I don't know if anyone was in there with me, but that was fun. We did one on 12 ways to use the intervention program. We did a live Q&A in there just now. So lifetime access is a great deal. The price is going up because I'm adding 4 more webinars. So it's going up from 12 webinars to 16. But once you're in, you're in. So you don't have to worry about paying for anything extra. If you get in before 11 o'clock tonight, that's the best price. So get in before it goes up at 11 tonight. It's kind of like your last chance. Okay. Yes, I was. Mindy. Hi, Mindy. Yeah, you were. I don't know what happened with my comments in that group. Anyways, that's a whole nother story. All right, so tomorrow, thanks to Catherine for reminding me, and I want to hire you right now. Geez, my life is crazy. I am going to be live tomorrow night here at Out of This World Literacy again at 6 o'clock, not 8 o'clock. So just remember that, mark your calendar, 6 o'clock. And if you miss me live, you can always watch the replay too. But we'll be talking about 4 steps to getting everyone writing in your class. Rebecca said, I feel like I'm stalking you. If you rang my doorbell after I got off of this call, Rebecca, then I would be scared. But right now you're fine. Because I've been live a lot today. I don't know. It's been a crazy day. All right, so I will talk to you all tomorrow. Hopefully I can see you live and then see you in the Fluency webinar tomorrow night too. Take care, everybody. Bye.